Okay, so I wanted to make a little video. I'm going to try to keep this really short, but about how to use audio scripts from the textbook as a way to, of course, not only show students, what they're listening to, but to kind of go beyond that and to use it as the basis for a few other activities. I don't like to use the word eat up time because, everything we do in class should have some kind of value, besides just killing time or busy work. But a lot of times we, for our own, mental health, right? We want to kind of, I don't want to say minimize our planning, but not have to plan too much or over plan or spend too much time planning, right? And we may have a textbook that could be quite thin, yet we might be required to use it. So we say, okay, well, how do we stretch it out? Now, textbooks usually have workbooks and other activities, such as in the standout, there's online activity, or not online, but there's some digital only activities. But sometimes those can be pretty shallow, they can be pretty repetitive. They might not be very, I don't know, enriching, if that's the right word. Um, there could be a lot of problems with those, and they might be done very quickly as well. Some of them are like super quick. So here's a way to kind of meaningfully stretch out some of these audio activities. So I'm going to focus on Standout here because that's the textbook that I'm required to use at one of my schools. So for text, Standout doesn't have it does have a teacher's edition, but even that, I don't think it has the audio, it's missing a lot of things that are only in the digital, presentation version. So I'm going to go to teacher resources in case any of my coworkers are watching this, and then going to audio scripts, and then I'll just open it here. Now, unfortunately, as you can see, it's basically just a giant PDF. It's just a giant file. I, you would think that in 2025, maybe the scripts would be in separate files or they could be linked to each textbook. That's not the case. So basically, it's just a giant file. Now, what I had done in the past was I had um, taken screenshots of these individual ones and then extract and then cropped them and then printed them out. But now with AI tools, I primarily use ChatGPT. It doesn't really matter though. I can actually extract the text. I contacted one time one of the representatives who came to our campus to show us this tool. I asked that person if there was a text version of this that would be easier to print out. I didn't really get a clear answer. And I honestly, I didn't follow up. I figured they just didn't have it and didn't care. So I'm going to show you what I did recently. Just trying to think. Where is it here? Here it is. Okay. So our recent activity was lesson 4, I think, from unit 1, which was about goal setting. And maybe I should just show you that one. So what they did here was they read a flyer. I mean, geez, look how short this is, right? I mean, that's way too short. So they read this flyer, and then they talked about goal setting, big picture stuff, blah, blah, blah. And then they listened to a lecture on goal setting, and they're supposed to take notes. I mean, that's fine, right? The problem is, if you're learning a language, like when I was learning Japanese, if I'm going to listen to something, I would really love to hear this, to see the script as well. Or watching a clip or a movie, we want to turn on the captions if it's not our first language. So what I usually do is I try to print out the audio scripts. Now, I'm going to go back here. So lesson 4, exercise C. I'm going to extract this, okay? Actually, I already did this for the lesson, but I'm just going to walk you through it. Okay, so I've got that. And then I'm going to go to ChatGPT, okay? This is about my dog. I've been giving her subcutaneous fluids. I was kind of asking ChatGPT about it. So please extract the text from this image. You can actually see in the lower left corner, I've already done this, but I'm just going to walk you through it. My cat's walking in front of the microphone. Hey, buddy. Okay, later. Okay, so then I'm going to add that screenshot. Thankfully, it's a PNG image, and when you take photos, for example, if you have an iPhone, I believe it's the HEIC format, you kind of have to convert it to JPEG or something. That's one of the only things I don't like about taking pictures with my phone. I always have to convert it to a JPEG, but it takes like 10 seconds. Okay, so what it's doing here is it's extracting the text from my image. So this way, I actually have a text file, right? And I don't have an image that I have to print or resize or anything. Okay, so what I can do here, which I've already done, is I can just copy this. Cat's back on the table. And then I can go to Google Doc. And then I can just paste it, right? Then I can format a little bit. And that's why it's always better to have an actual text file, because then you can do things like change the font size, change the font itself. You know, you can reformat it as you like. 11 is too small. I generally try to use 14 for my students. We do have a lot of elderly students. And I think it's just better in general to have a slightly larger font. Students can make notes more easily if the font is larger. You may even want to let's see, double space, right? So this way they can put some notes in there. So that's always the great part about working with a text file versus an image or a screenshot of a text. Okay, but let's do something more dynamic, right? So the students are supposed to discuss this, okay? But I mean, gee, I'm sorry. It's got these 3 questions as comprehension questions. They're not very, I mean, you can do these in like, what, 2 minutes, right? 1 minute or 2 minutes. And they're not very meaningful. They're not very reflective. They don't really encourage discussion, right? They don't really encourage a deeper dive. This is a 500 level textbook, so I really want to challenge my students, especially because a lot of them really don't need to be in ESL anymore, but that's the highest level. They could move on to like a non-credit college course or other, non-ESO classes, but they just want to keep improving their English, but they're also probably too advanced for the 500 level. So here's what I can do. These comprehension questions are not very interesting. So I'm going to go back to ChatGPT and I'm going to say, please create 10 discussion questions that encourage students to not only talk about the script itself, but also their own experiences, opinions, viewpoints, etc. Okay, so let's see what it gives me. And I specifically asked for discussion questions because most of the students really want to work on their speaking, right? Okay, but okay, I want to change it a little bit. They should also check for comprehension. So not just a discussion question, because we don't want to assume students understand what they're hearing or reading. So let's make sure that we can also check the comprehension. Okay, much better. So what are the 7 types of goals? What is an example of a career goal? Why does the text say it's important to set financial goals? So we want to do a little bit of both, comprehension check and more reflection, deep dive discussions. Great. Answer key, please. I mean, honestly, if you're the teacher, you should be able to find the answer in like 5 seconds, but it's a little bit easier just to get the answer key for yourself. And when you're talking with the students, you're talking them through the text. You'll be able to highlight the answers. I'm not going to go into too much detail. I want to keep this video short, but as you can see, I've got a lot of rich materials here. Okay, and I mean, this 10 question discussion, comprehension check plus discussion, I mean, this could easily take 20 or 30 minutes or longer. Doesn't mean you're just giving the students busy work. This is probably a lot more meaningful than just answering these 3 multiple choice questions and moving on after like 2 or 3 minutes, right? Okay, let's go back here. Now, what I like to do as well is I like to give students sentence starters. Sometimes they're not sure what to say or how to frame their answers. So please provide sentence starters or grammar structures to help them answer the questions. Okay, so this is great. What is the first step in goal setting? The first step in goal setting is to, according to the text, ooh, I like that one. The text mentions, so, That's another way to say kind of according to, right? An example of a career goal is. So that's an interesting way to start a sentence. A lot of students won't start a sentence this way. According to the text, okay. The passage says, the passage mentions, okay. Anyway, you can fine tune this as you want. I just want to give you the idea. And using ChatGPT or other LLMs, AI tools for lesson preparation and material creation of materials is that basically a lot of it is just getting the idea and then playing with it and refining it yourself, right? But a lot of times you just have to kind of have someone open the door for you. And that's what happened for me last year, almost about 10 months ago. I had no interest in using this stuff. And then all it took was one of my bosses to just kind of show me for an hour all the different tools and how he uses them. And then from there, I mean, a lot of it was mostly just kind of trying stuff on my own, but I just needed someone to open the door for me, to get me over that barrier. Okay, so I guess this will be the last, maybe two more things. So another thing I've been doing a lot with my, when using textbooks is I've had like creating conversations between students or other people where they're actually discussing the materials in question. So it's kind of a weird thing. Let me just show you. Please create a dialogue where two students are reacting to the audio script lecture. This will serve as a model for students to critically talk about the ideas presented, especially whether it's best to set goals or be more adaptable, or I should say, or not. So I created this as the previous day's lesson where students will kind of discuss the pros and cons and their preferences for being goal setters or having more loose outlines or just principles, if that makes sense. Okay, so wow, that lecture made me think a lot. It says we should set goals in different areas of life. I'm not so sure I understand the idea, but I think sometimes goals can make people feel stressed. So being a little critical, which I think is very helpful for the advanced level students. But I think students in general, especially adult students, even some of the lower level students I've noticed, like the 200 level, beginning high, they can be critical of materials or what they're presented with. A lot of them will kind of disagree with things in the textbook. So not the textbook itself, but the ideas presented in the textbook. So say, I don't like to do that. I like to do something different. So I think it's great for any level, and I think it encourages a lot of richer discussion. And writing, of course. I'm focusing on conversation here, but of course you can adapt this to a writing activity or to do both. No problem. Okay. Please include some phrasal verbs and idioms, because that's what students seem to really like, because they usually don't get those in books, as well as more academic or general terms. Max of 10. I want students to learn how to disagree. I'm just kind of doing this on the fly. This is not my real lesson, but just to kind of show you how you can create a conversation or a dialogue where people are actually talking about those materials from the book. And it can also serve as a model for your students to critically discuss those same materials. And it's just more practice, right? More reading practice. You can convert this into an audio. I'm not going to show you how to do that now, but you can convert it into an audio using an app or a software like Descript, okay? Goals help me stay on track. Sometimes goals make people burn out. I prefer to go with the flow. I like to push back a little bit. Great, and it's only 10, so it's not too many. You don't want to overwhelm them. Yeah, so this can serve as a model. You can provide more structure for such a discussion. I'm just showing you an example there. The last thing I want to show is how you can use, so if you have an audio script, right, so they can read it, they can understand precisely what they heard, because they're going to miss a few things. Even if they're really advanced level students, they're still going to miss some of the vocabulary or whatever. So sometimes the teachers will have students, I do it too, have them read the audio script together. So as a read out loud, and they kind of follow the listening, so it helps them with pronunciation. We can go a step further and look at pronunciation in terms of like stress variation or linking sounds or chunking or thought groups. So I'm going to do that. Please present the text from the audio script again, but this time highlight the words that you think would be naturally stressed because they are more important. Okay. I mean, this might not be 100% accurate, but it's just to give you a guide. And what I like to do honestly is I like to just read it through with the students, and I use a highlighter to show them what I think is most important. Okay. Can you show linking sounds? Ooh, see, I've never actually done this before. Yeah, this is great. I usually just do it by hand on the overhead projector, or using a dock camera projected on the TV, but this is great. And it also gave me a little handy guide for the students. This can take 20, 30 minutes, and the students actually appreciate this, right? Because it's one of the missing links. They know that natural English is not the same as how people often speak in the textbooks. They know that words go together and are stressed or unstressed. They just don't know the rules often. And if you can go over this with them, they'll really appreciate it. And like I said, you can take a very simple kind of throwaway activity like this listening passage from the book, which you could probably do in about 10 minutes with the questions. And we've turned it into something that could probably take an hour or more. And it's not busy work, it is meaningful stuff, but you've also reduced your preparation and planning time as well. So, okay, last one. What was I going to do? Oh, can you revise the script so it reflects chunking, thought groups? Goal setting is a process that makes you think about your future and helps motivate you to make that future reality. Yeah, this sounds pretty good. Now, again, this is something I just go over really quickly with the students using a dock camera projected onto the TV, but this is great too. It kind of reduces your workload, or just gives you something to use as a reference. I'm going to do one more actually. Can you revise the script to show reduced sounds? You can make it look phonetic. For example, pick up to pick up. Goal setting is a process that makes you think about your future, and helps setting goals, helps you go in. Is it the first thing you should do? The first thing you should do once you've that's kind of weird. That's weird. Just highlight reduced sounds, but don't change the text. Okay, let's do that. The first thing you should do is create a big picture of where you want to be in a certain number. You want to learn how much money would you. So would you sounds like would you. Change the text in that way for similar reductions. Or I'm not even sure what to call this, and I really should finish up this video. Anyway, there's a lot of things you can do. I just wanted to show you some of the ideas. And honestly, this kind of reminded me of the things that I should be doing to not only reduce my planning time, of course, but also to kind of make these materials richer and not just kind of go through them quickly just because they are kind of shallow in some ways, or but doesn't mean we can't work with them and make them more valuable.